Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I've got my new friend Peter here, and I met Peter back in, I think it was February, right?
Correct.
And we ran into each other at a restaurant and started chatting, and we kept in touch. And you've been to Philippines, what, many times, right? Like 5 times?
Yeah, this is the 5th visit. So just after, I'll be just 2 days before I met you, I actually had met my partner, who's close by, and so that's the reason I've been coming back. And she lives in Manila, and so this is the 5th time I've been to the Philippines, and I usually only stay for a couple of weeks each time. And
you've taken her to Australia too, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I have.
This is a serious relationship here.
Yes, so as soon as I met her, I thought, I'd like for her to come and see where I live in Australia, so she doesn't think I'm just sort of coming over to the Philippines and then disappearing back to Australia, having another life to myself. So it took a while, but we got a visa to come to Australia. Took a couple of months, and so I thought, oh, that's okay, good. So Cherie, I'll say her name. Yeah. She'd already.
That's her over there.
Correct. She knew that there might be a few complications about her actually getting out of the Philippines. So getting the Australian visa was okay, but then coming to getting being allowed out of the Philippines.
Yeah, my wife went through the same thing. You had to fill out a special form at the airport to actually leave your own country.
Yeah, so
I've never seen that before.
Yeah, well, she was sort of well aware of that, and she knew she'd probably have to do an interview.
Yeah,
which she did. So it was, she locked herself in the bedroom and did the interview, and all that sort of stuff. And she had all the paperwork there about about me and so on, who she's going to be with. So that was okay. So we got tickets to go back, and so she came back with me. That was the last visit I came here for, the 4th visit. So she came back with me, and well, I'm just at the airport though. I thought, okay, we got our tickets, passport, okay, going through the passport control. Oh, could you just come this way for a minute? I wonder what this is about. And so Cherie goes into an office and being interviewed by a woman, and they're asking her questions about, just further questions to make sure that she's okay. And
this is going in or going out?
This is going out.
Leaving Australia?
No, sorry, beg your pardon. This is before we actually left the Philippines.
Okay, got it. Yeah,
so
that's where they get you.
Yeah. So and I thought that was all okay because we've got the board, you've got the tickets, so I thought everything must be okay.
Right.
But just as we're getting the passports checked, they said, "Oh, sorry," or not sorry, but could you come with me? So, and I was waiting outside this interview room, and so she got interviewed by a lady, and asked her just questions about, is she okay? And
well, they're trying to protect their citizens.
Exactly.
You can't really hold it against them.
No, exactly. And they actually came out and saw me.
They're usually pretty polite too.
Yeah, no, they were good, and they came out and saw me, and spoke to me about how many times I've been here, and I think what convinced them also was the fact that we're building a house in Manila, and that her 3 brothers were helping build it, and she showed them a video of that, so it was
you're committed.
So,
I'm buying her a house.
I'm employing people from the Philippines, helping the economy. Anyway, so that was good, and so in actual fact she's coming back again at the end of next week for a week or so.
Now, back in Australia, what was your profession? What did you do?
I was a school teacher for most of my life.
Really?
I had a break for about 2 years.
What did you teach? What grades?
As I say to some, that's a bit of a laugh. Not much. No. No, I started off as a physical education history teacher, and because I like ball sports, etc. I like sport. Then after 2 or 3 years, I thought, it's a bit hard wearing, being outside all the time. Well, not out, you're in the gym sometimes, but you've always got movement. Once you've got movement, it's always a bit harder than just having kids nailed down in the classroom. Do this, etc. So I thought I'd like to, just do something a little bit different. So I did a law degree, and so I ended up teaching sort of commercial subjects like legal studies, and I did an IT extra qualifications so I could teach business studies and IT and stuff like that. So that got me outside, and I enjoyed that. In some ways, not better because the kids like being outside.
Right.
The junior kids did anyway, but I got more satisfaction out of teaching senior classes, and that's what I did most of my life. So.
At what age can you retire in Australia?
65.
Okay.
65, and I think now it's about, they're raising the age limit, so I think it's about 66 now. So if you're born about 2 or 3 years after me, they're starting to get the age limit up.
I know some countries, like if you're a teacher, you work for the government, you got your pension from your job, and then there was like what we would call Social Security. I don't know what that is in Australia, but do you get one or the other? You just get your...
You only get one.
You only get one?
Yeah.
Do you have to choose, or you just...
No, you only get one, because usually, we call it superannuation. Usually that is more than, the government pension or whatever. Right. And so you can't sort of double dip, as they call it. So it depends. Originally, when I started a long time ago, you could retire and get a set percentage of what your salary was when you finished. So if you finished, on $100,000 a year, you might get $75,000 a year for the rest of your life.
Nice.
Which is nice. But the trouble is, I'd resigned. I moved to a new state, from Victoria up to Queensland, a bit like going from New York to Florida, I suppose, but in reverse.
Right.
And of course, they found that was costing them. The governments found that was costing them too much money. So it was more or less, okay, you put in some money, we'll put in some money, and we'll invest it. So it wasn't quite the same. You still got, a fairly generous sum, but.
I talked to some guys from Australia that if they were outside of the country for a certain amount of time, they quit getting their pension.
I'm not sure about the actual age pension.
Laws.
I was on the age pension for a short time after I retired because I still qualified. I had a little bit in the money, but I still qualified for a part pension.
Right.
I think the full pension is about if you've got less than 260,000 in the bank, less than that, you get the full pension. Between 260,000 Australian dollars and about 580,000 Australian dollars, you get a part pension. Anything over $580,000, you get nothing. Okay, because you've got more money than
Wow.
Yeah, so anything between 260, under 260, you get the full pension, which is about $1,000 a fortnight Australian, which is about 3/4 of that American.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, which is not bad.
But so you can permanently leave Australia, live in another country, and continue to get your pension the rest of your life.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, whether you have to come back every so often, I'm not sure. I haven't fully investigated that because I'm now no longer on the pension. Because as I mentioned to you before the interview, I got a bit of a inheritance last year, which helped things a lot. But I think I might be back on the pension soon. In fact, I think I might qualify. But because I've spent a fair bit of money, the government says, okay, you spend all this money, you're just trying to get the pension again. So you've got to actually, they're going to go through it. So where did that money go to? Where did this money go to?
I'm building a house to live in. I mean, that sounds totally legit to me.
So who owns the house?
Well,
me? No.
My girlfriend.
Okay, so you've given a gift to somebody.
Yeah.
You can only gift about 50,000 Australian dollars over 3 years. So they hit you both ways. If I bought it, that's still an asset, so that gets added onto my asset total. So
So you're building your girlfriend a house.
Yeah.
Now, are you getting married, or?
If my daughters are watching this, maybe. Maybe not at the moment, no, because technically I'm still married to a Russian lady that I mentioned to you before, who's back in Moscow now, and we're still going through that. Although she has sent paperwork saying she dissolves the marriage, and we're just looking at whether that is recognised under Australian law.
Well, are you going to get the SRB visa here, like the retirement visa, or do you have a plan, or you're just going to keep coming and going?
I think I'm just planning on keep coming and going at the moment while I can, while I can afford to. My trips might be a little bit, elongated now because you know, my money's starting to run down a little bit, so I can't just go backwards and forwards.
Right.
It does, you know, it is costing a fair bit of money. But yeah, so maybe, you know, I might come 3 times a year. Cherie might come over, but us going backwards and forwards together, you know, that sort of doubles up too much.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I might come over here, then have a couple of weeks break, and then she can come over for a few weeks. Then I know it sounds a bit strange, but
Well, where do you stay when you have a home back in Australia?
yes, I've got a place. I did have a house, yeah, up in the country, little country town in Queensland. I sold that after my previous wife left, and I moved to a place which I owned for a long time. It's a rental place in Brisbane, and so I moved into that and renovated it just to keep me occupied because I wasn't feeling the best after the previous situation, and so that sort of kept me occupied for 12 months. And then I ended up getting an apartment, which I thought was easy to handle. I could then move around a bit more freely rather than having a house, so I can just lock the door. Although I've got somebody to come and look after my dog still. So that's that. Yeah, so I was in Victoria to teach for, getting back to that, for 20 or 30 years. Then moved to Queensland, which probably wasn't a good move career-wise, because this 50-year-old guy has resigned from Victoria,
Right.
comes to Queensland. My 2 daughters decided to go to Queensland University. I've got twin daughters, and they decided to go to Queensland University. So my wife at the time, the first wife, said, "Okay, well, I'm going there too." Okay, I better go. I'd better come along too. But career-wise, it wasn't a good move. I managed to get employment, full-time employment, virtually straight away. But when you're in your 50s, they think, oh, you know.
Yeah.
In Victoria, I'd sort of worked up and I was doing more organisation, like the school timetable and all that sort of stuff. So when they see you, when you're 50-year-old, you know, starting off in a new school, you know, I just come from Victoria, they think, you know, well, this guy's a bit of a journeyman, you know, what's his...
So what does your family back home think about your new lifestyle, you know, coming back forth to Australia, to Philippines, and you got a girlfriend over here, but unlike a lot of these guys that come over here, your girlfriend's in her 40s, right? She's not, you know,
correct.
Yes. A mature woman with 3 children,
yes,
or 4
correct.
children.
Yeah.
And so what do they think about that?
I must admit, my son's fine, you know, happy-go-lucky, a bit like me, well, whatever, you know. And my twin daughters are a bit more suspect. As I mentioned to you previously, I was married to
is their mother Australian?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, she's actually Dutch.
Dutch, okay.
Yeah, well, but she came over when she's 11, but she's Australian, yeah, basically Australian, yeah. So they're a bit sort of worried about what their dad's doing, particularly what happened previously when I married a Russian woman, which I wasn't going to mention, but and they thought that was a bit sus. When I brought her back, they weren't too sort of keen on her. And then when she left suddenly, that was another reason why they thought I might be making the same mistake again. But I've tried to insist that.
But you seem like a really happy person.
Well,
like
I am.
Well,
I thought,
you're enjoying life. And
well, I'm in my 70s, and
really, I didn't. Oh, you don't look it. Wow, good for you.
Maybe I'm only 65. No. I've told her the right age. So, so you look at the timeline, you think, you know, all these people are popping off now, you know, they're in the, like, Olivia Newton-John's exactly the same age as me, and she died a week or so ago, or a couple of weeks ago. So you see all these actors and people and movie stars that are dying in their 60s and, you know, 70s, and so you think, well, I may as well make the most of it. So the reason I'm here is because of you, Mark, you and Paul. You know, watching your videos, I thought, oh, well, that sounds okay. I might, and it's been good because even though I was happy living at home and I had got an apartment overlooking the water, it's still, I had got the dog, but, you know, and I bought myself a piano to play and blah, 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 but it still wasn't the same. And I shouldn't say it, but I'm not really interested in women my age. I know it's a terrible thing to say, and women my age aren't probably interested in me either. So it's sort of like a two-way street.
Yeah. Well, usually women that age aren't interested in men at all anymore. They want to go play bridge or something.
No, and they're pretty, straight down the line. This is what happened, they've experienced all this before, and Anyway, so I thought, well, why not? And so what I'll be doing next year, hopefully I'll still be, connected with
Well, you seem like a guy that's really in good shape too. Like
reasonable. A bit overweight at the moment, but
I mean, health-wise, how have you taken? You said you were in athletics and a gym teacher and stuff. So have you always worked out and like diet and
pretty
exercise
much.
and
Pretty
never
much.
smoked or nothing like that? Or
well, every time I come to the Philippines, I seem to light up a smoke.
That's right. I saw you smoking here one time. I remember.
Yeah.
I remember that.
And after this interview, I might have one. I keep on saying the last one.
No.
But anyway, it says me coughing. But funny you should say that. When Cherie came out to Australia for the first time, which is only a few weeks ago, I drove her to the airport, and I came back home. I was driving back from the airport, and suddenly I thought, Jesus, I don't feel too good. I'm driving on the freeway back to the Gold Coast, which is about 70 kilometres. Geez, I think I'm going to pass out. And suddenly I sort of like, Jesus, that was lucky. So I pull up on the side of the road, and a truck that was behind me pulls up. And I said, the two guys come out, "Are you okay?" I said, yeah, I think I nearly passed out. They said, "Well, you must have, because you hit the guardrail back there." I said, "Oh, did I?"
Oh, wow.
I didn't even know. Now, that has happened to me before. With my Russian lady, who scared the hell out of her when I was in a chemist shop, and also when I was at Woolworths at the deli. I asked for an order, and the woman does the order, comes around, and where's that guy gone? I was behind the bench. I'd sort of,
Did your blood pressure drop or something? Or
that's what they thought the first time. Yeah, low blood pressure. And I think, and they put all the tests on me, and they think that's what it was. I've got a fairly low heart rate as it is. And my brother, who's an elite athlete, even in his 80s, he's a lot older than me, but he's got a low heart rate too.
Isn't that supposed to be a good thing though?
Well, sorry?
I thought that was a good thing.
Well, that's what I thought too, but he said, yeah, but...
like a slow, what they call it, a resting heart rate, a slow one.
Yeah,
Like a lot of these, like Armstrong and these guys, they're...
Yeah, well, that's what I thought. But my brother was talking about getting a pacemaker, and he rides, the bikes all the time, goes overseas.
Yeah.
And he said he was talking about getting a pacemaker. I said, why is that? He said, oh, well, I just thought... But his doctor said, no, he wouldn't recommend it. And I said, why is that? And my brother said, because putting them in is okay, but actually taking them out's the hard thing. He told my brother it wouldn't make any difference to him. But he said taking it out is worse than actually, you'd think putting it in is easiest, but he said, no, getting them out is harder. Well, that's what he told me.
What did your doctor say about all this?
Well, I've had tests, I've had an MRI scan. So I decided to go to hospital again after I got pulled up, and I recovered okay, and I thought I can still drive because it's happened before. Anyhow, an ambulance pulled up, and I thought, no, I better not. And a tow truck came and pulled it. The damage wasn't too bad to my new car. My first new car I had in 35 years. About $5,000 on it, but which is still getting repaired. And of course, I go to the hospital, and they wanted me to stay overnight. And I got my dog sitting outside the hospital because the dog was with me.
Yeah.
And I said, after I recovered, I thought, no, look, I know I'm going to be okay. I just felt the same as I am now. It's just one of those things. And so I had all tests done again, and I didn't take their advice, and I went home anyway. They said, well, it's not a jail, we can't keep you here. But they did write to the traffic people that issue licences saying I'm not to. They recommended I not to drive. So
that sucks.
Yeah. So I haven't heard back from them yet. This is probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. Since as I said, Cherie was going back. I was coming back from the airport. It was about 3 weeks ago. So, and my car's getting fixed up anyway. So I haven't got a car. But so I'm not sure what's going to happen. Whether they're going to contact me in the future and say, look.
Better be in the Philippines and.
Yeah. And I've got an e-bike over here, so I'm driving that. I hope that's okay.
Well, the thing is, soon as you start feeling that coming over, you know what it is.
Yeah,
so you just pull over right away.
I couldn't get over there fast enough though. That was the trouble.
Yeah.
The same as when I was getting served in the deli when I hit the deck. I thought, I'll just get them in there. I'll just sit down. I couldn't quite get there.
Are you on any kind of medication?
No, nothing.
That's amazing. You're on medication.
No medication. So that's the third time. So they said we've got to get to the bottom of this, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's the only health issue I've got. And my brother travels overseas quite a lot on airplanes, which I'm doing, and he said your heart rate drops a lot, don't you? You realise that, don't you? I said, oh, is that right? He said, yeah, it's like being 10,000 k's or 10,000 metres up in the air, like in a mountain. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Well, that's what he said. So.
But I didn't know it affected your heart.
No, well,
I've got the opposite. I got high blood pressure.
Yeah, well, you've had a
bypass.
Yeah, bypass and all that. They did find one thing. One of the what goes into your heart, arteries. I don't know, veins. I don't know. I did phys ed and I did biology. I can't remember. But one is slightly narrower. So I must admit, I don't eat all that healthily at times. I like a lot of.
You need a stent or something. You know?
It could do. Yeah. I don't, but the last test I was lying on my side and I saw this boom, 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 boom. And the guy was doing all the reading. He was actually married to a Filipino, and I was talking about the Philippines. And I said, "Yeah, the only word I know is Salamat." He said, "No, you don't say it like that. You say it Salamat." I don't know. I couldn't even say it right anyway.
Giving up.
Yeah. But anyway, so that was that. But so I was a teacher. Getting right back, I was a teacher for most of my life. I had a break for a few years and tried to run coin-operated machines and like pinball machines and.
I did that.
Did you?
Yeah, I had a sports games company for a while.
Okay.
Had the pop shot basketball games.
Oh, right,
football, golf games. You know.
But I found that I couldn't keep up with the big guys that ran all the driving games, the Daytonas and stuff.
They're always breaking down.
Yeah, and I couldn't keep up with them. So what I worked out was I was better off having pinball machines because pinball machines, even though they might be old, a lot of guys still like them.
Yeah.
Even new ones, even the old ones sometimes.
They're fun, yeah.
Even the old ones sometimes made more money than brand new ones, which in Australia were probably about 8,000-9,000 Australian dollars.
Wow.
But some of the old ones like Lethal Weapon or Addams Family, funny how I know all these names, all these things that kids play. But anyway, so the income from that started to drop. Unfortunately, like a lot of things, they've all now gone up in value, all those old...
Yeah, they're worth a lot,
yeah.
People love them.
Yeah, so... I did have a couple of experiences at school, which I always enjoyed teaching. I loved it over the 30 or 40 years that I taught. But I did have a couple of mishaps, you could say.
Like what?
I'd like to say, well, I was promoted and I did this. No. I'd gone to a new school. This is after about 13 or 14 years teaching. I'd gone to a new school and the staff rooms, I don't know what they're like in the States, but in the staff rooms, everything's, you've got a desk about that big, books on shitting everywhere and people beside you and, all crowded in. Got to the staff room and I sort of knew a few people there, not many. I'd only been there for 2 or 3 months. And on my desk that morning, I saw this petition signed by 13 staff members. And I thought, and sensitive old me, what the, because I like to get on with people and some people couldn't give a shit, What the hell is this? It was about a petition that or a survey that I'd organised.
You'd organised?
I'd organised. Yeah. The short story is that I had a year 11 class, which is probably 16, 17-year-old girls, all girls, doing commercial stuff. I think they might have been little electric typewriters in those days, the big heavy things. And you're always thinking of something for them to type up, something relevant. And so I thought, okay, we'll do a survey of the kids and print it up. Yeah. Get a questionnaire. So the kids, the girls, this is the girls' mind, developed this questionnaire. With about 20 questions on it. Who does this and who's the best sports person, blah, blah, blah. Unbeknownst to me, slack old Peter didn't read all the questions. Who has got the cutest bum?
Oh, no.
And of course, probably still the same, there's a very strong, particularly with women teachers, very strong feminist group that like to jump on the bandwagon for anything. So
who wrote that question? One of the girls?
Yeah, the all girls class. So,
and you got blamed for it?
So it was basically, but I should have vetted it.
I should have vetted it.
It was basically, I think it was probably the girls asking, probably the other girls, who's got the cutest bum, because they're into that sort of thing. So I got this, I thought, shit, what's this? Please withdraw this survey immediately. And accused me of teaching sexist trivia. And I thought, Jesus, as I said, people just wanted something to jump on it. I thought, fuck, what's this? And signed by 13 people, and people I hadn't ever spoken to, and I'm sort of, and people are at the desk, this is early in the morning, and they knew, most of them. Not, mind you, it was probably a staff of about 60, so they all didn't do it. And please withdraw this survey, teaching sexist trivia, otherwise we shall take this matter further. So I thought, fuck, I thought I better head him off to the pass. So I went and saw the deputy principal and I said, Jesus, look at this. And I was really devastated. I showed another guy, staff member, who said, oh, fuck, and he just put his finger up there and, just put the thumb sign over the survey, that's what his, but I couldn't do that. It was, it was like anyhow, so I thought I'd head them off at the pass, and I went and saw the deputy principal, who's a good guy, and he wasn't concerned about the survey. What he was concerned about was the threat. Otherwise, we shall take this matter further. And I think that this group of people probably gave him a hard time as well. Always complaining about this or that, maybe. And
he has enemies.
Yeah. So he wasn't concerned about the survey. He was just concerned about the threat. And he said, do you want me to do something about it? I said, no, it's okay. I've withdrawn the survey, and so that's fine. But that was the funny thing was, I got promoted out of that school that year, and it really irritated the that group. Mind you, there's one guy that did come up to me, and I always appreciate this. He was actually, not that it makes any difference, a gay music teacher who was really in with that group. They're always, together. He said, look, I didn't sign the survey because I wanted to speak to you face to face, which is I appreciated. He said, I don't, I wanted to speak to you face to face. He said, I don't agree with the survey, what you did, but I thought I'd just speak to you face to face. And I said, oh, well, thanks for that. He said, and he didn't sign it, and he would have been under a bit of pressure to sign it, because they're
That's
all
good,
yeah. And I do appreciate that when on reflection, and I always think about that. Anyway, that was one. There's another one later on, but I won't. You need to. Was that too much?
No, that's good. In Australia, like in America, they're having a lot of trouble with like fighting and gangs and drugs and things like that. Is there any trouble like that in Australia?
In the schools?
The schools.
Yeah. Not so much. It depends on the school, to be quite honest.
Do they wear uniforms over there?
Yes.
See, I always think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think that kind of puts everybody on the same playing field where, the rich kids not wearing the fancy clothes, and they all kind of are the same. Yeah.
In fact, I was going to make some comparisons. I've wrote a few notes here about comparison, because I've been to some Filipino schools as well, starting off the school year last week. Anyway, it's probably not as bad as people think. Once you actually go into school and teach there, people think, oh, that school's got a terrible reputation. But once you're actually in the classroom, it's usually not too bad. And usually the senior kids are okay, no matter what school you're at, because they just want to get through and get done with stuff. But
what about cell phones? They have to have their cell phones put away in the class?
They should, but some schools, I think that'd be a good idea to actually. Some schools actually, I think now make them hand them in.
I've heard that. Yeah. I remember when calculators first came out, and God, we wish we could have that calculator.
Getting back to uniforms, actually, I was at a school and they didn't have uniform. Then the girls, usually the teenage girls, wanted to have uniforms because they were sick and tired of trying to figure out what the hell they were going to wear every day. Because it's not a competition, but they felt. And
think about it.
And some of the kids who probably haven't got a lot of clothes, and so it was good. So we actually introduced uniforms at that school, and that was good because there was another non-uniform school down the road. As soon as the the parents from the other non-uniform school heard that, they wanted to come into our school. So in actual fact, the parents thought that was, or quite a few parents thought that was a good idea.
Don't you think these kids nowadays have it really easy compared to when I was in school? Like, if you had to turn in a term paper, for example, or a project, you had to type it.
Yeah.
And if you made so many mistakes, they took off, a whole grade letter if you spelled a word wrong or if there was a mistake.
Yeah.
And nowadays, these kids can just go right on Google and research anything, copy and paste.
Yeah.
And, and you have,
no, you're right.
You have spell check and grammar check, and you can make your paper perfect. The computer can do it all for you. But we had to know how to do all that.
There's some programs now where they pick up that. There's some programs where they can pick up the fact that you've copied something from a website somewhere. But
you can still do spell check and grammar check. I mean, that's a big thing. I mean, we used to get a whole grade taken off for that.
Yeah. Well, in my time, before your time, in the end of school year, it was based on a 3-hour exam for every subject. That was it. So you could stuff around for all the year, but it was that 3-hour exam for each subject. And we used to, just about crap ourselves because that 3-hour exam. What if you weren't feeling too well that day? So that was what it was based on. When I started teaching, it started to move back to about half and half to 3/4. About half for an exam and half on internal assessment, as they call it. And now I think it's a lot of it really is internal assessment. And so there's always problems about, does that school's internal assessment compare with that school's internal assessment? And so then you get all the teachers together and from the schools and take samples of, their A and your A student and their B student. And most of...
If you had, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
So if you had a 10-year-old child right now, would you rather have them going to school in today, the way things are today in Australia, or back, say, the way they were in the 60s or 70s?
Well,
we always,
we always think our time was better. I'm not too sure whether it was or not.
Yeah.
Because I think in the 60s, when I was in junior level, my class that I was in, I think it was nearly all boys. There's only about 20 of us. Were considered to be pretty bad news. So I don't like to run kids down now today. I think they're probably a lot more worldly. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
What do you think of the power you got in your smartphone? You've got the whole world there, and anything you want to know, you can look it up. And of course, they're watching TikTok videos, but
exactly. Well, like Cherie's daughter.
Yeah.
Every time I see her, she's got the screen there, and she's doing this. All this sort of crap. I don't know. Anyway, good for her. But I'm not sure. In the Philippines, I went to a couple of classes. Because the parents had to come to the class to meet this class too, which I think is a good idea.
Yeah.
We didn't have that in Australia, where the parents come or the guardian comes and meets the teacher, and I think that's a good idea. There are some disadvantages though. 60 kids to a room.
It's a lot.
Now, I sort of changed my politics a little bit over the last few years, but I was a lefty school teacher, like the women that I talked about. And if you weren't in the union, in some ways you had to be a little bit silly because, if you're a teacher, because they did protect you and they did try and look after you as far as your conditions went. So even back 40 years ago, 30 was the maximum class number. The classes here around about 60. From what I can tell, about 60. And we had to donate. Could you please donate either a day's work at the school or clean something, or we donated a wall fan.
Now my wife was telling me when she was in school, they have projects, they call them, and you have to go buy all the supplies, and some of these poor children can't afford to buy the paper and pens and cardboard. Well, what do we need to complete the projects? They just never do the project.
It's really sad here. Yet the kids are nicely dressed most of the time, nicely dressed, sitting down. And I actually went past one class. I don't know why though. Anyway, the buildings are pretty ordinary. Actually, the outside of them, the old Spanish types, they look great. But when you get to the back and some of the older parts of it, broken concrete and broken windows, and geez, it's and I was really shocked with the conditions. The teachers seemed to be fine. Be okay. They were fine, but and the parents having to contribute for the classroom, like just having a fan, or you know, and you know, some of the louvers in the windows, you know, the glass windows were broken, and yeah, it's just the physical conditions are probably yeah, a bit of a drawback. I don't know how much the local government puts, or not the local government, the government puts in for the resources in the schools and that. I don't want to get into politics of that, but that's just the way it is.
So you're going back to Australia, what, in 2 days?
Going back in 2 days, and no, about 4 or 5 days, the end of the week, and sure, he'll be coming back with me.
Nice.
And
how long will she stay there?
Sorry?
How long will she stay there?
About a bit longer this time. We're sort of extending the time about 10 days. But it's a bit harder because she's got kids going to school now, so they've got to get picked up by her brother. So he's working on our house, and so he's got to come with his trike. The apartment she's in now and the building we're building is fairly close together, but yeah, so he's got to pick her up and pick the kids up and some of the kids. Yeah, so that's that. But actually, one thing about the schools, what they've got here is another good thing is that they have one parent in the classroom. One parent is the president of that classroom.
Really?
Yeah, so they're like I don't know whether it happens at all schools, but so they're like a liaison officer.
Interesting, I didn't know that.
And I thought, no, I didn't either. And I thought, oh, that's a good idea. It sort of takes the pressure off, you know, if another parent's got a complaint. Well, what about going through another parent who then maybe sort of settles the issue down a bit? And I think that's a great idea. So there are some good ideas. There's a couple of other ones I don't know.
A lot of people in the Philippines are getting college degrees too. It's amazing, people from, you know, poor families.
Yeah.
And you talk to them and like they've got 5 children, 3 of them have a college degree.
Yeah.
And they've kind of lift the whole family up.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
No, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
No, they seem to be they seem to support education here if they can. So anyway, so that's another, you know, different side of education.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for your time, Peter. I'm looking forward to seeing you next time, and next time to come out to my house.
Good to see you, Mark.
Yeah.
Okay.